The most dangerous people in the room aren't the ones shouting. They're the ones who decide, in advance, exactly which emotion they'll feel. And when. Most believe emotional control means staying calm, that it's about restraint. About not losing your temper, that's a beginner's mistake. The top 1% don't suppress emotion, they weaponize it. They know that true power isn't found in silence, but in selective expression. While others bleed cognitive energy reacting to every provocation, elite performers treat feelings like tactical assets, deploying calm to scan, anger to enforce boundaries, even anxiety to sharpen foresight. If you've ever felt hijacked by frustration, doubt, or urgency in a high-stakes moment, you weren't lacking discipline. You were missing design. And that design is what separates those who compete from those who quietly dominate.
You are not just losing your temper. You are losing money, not metaphorically, not energy or vibes. Actual, measurable, compounding value, leaking out of your decisions every time you react without design. Imagine this. Two founders pitched the same idea to the same investor. Same slides. Same market size. Same traction. But one stumbles, one challenged. Voice tightens. Defensiveness creeps in. Eyes flicker downward for half a second too long. The other leans forward. Says, "That is a sharp observation. Let me show you how we stress-tested that exact risk." Calm, curious, unshaken. Both they're competent. Only one gets funded. Why? Because emotional reactivity does not just cloud your judgment. Cheap broadcasts uncertainty. And in high-stakes environments, uncertainty is the fastest way to lose leverage. Your brain was not built for modern pressure. It was built for saber-toothed tigers and tribal exile. So when your boss questions your timeline, your nervous system does not see feedback, sees its threat. Blood rushes from your prefrontal cortex to your limbs. Cortisol spikes. Your vision narrows. You are no longer thinking 3 moves ahead. You are surviving. And in that moment, you pay the tax. A 2023 meta-analysis published in Nature Human Behavior tracked over 8,000 decision-makers under controlled stress. Result? Even mild emotional arousal, like frustration, urgency, or social anxiety, reduced strategic reasoning accuracy by an average of 15.7%. That is not having a bad day. That is operating with a 16% cognitive handicap while your competitors stay cool. Worse, you rarely notice it because the tax is silent. It does not announce itself as a mistake. It hides inside rushed conclusions, defensive language, overpromising, or premature concessions. It lives in the email you send at 11 p.m. that undoes a week of credibility, in the meeting where you talk too much to prove you belong, instead of listening to uncover what others will not say. This is why elite performers do not measure success by outcomes alone. They audit their emotional efficiency. How much mental bandwidth did they waste managing internal noise? How many decisions were distorted by unexamined feeling? How much authority did they surrender by letting their physiology lead their strategy? Because here is the brutal truth. In the arena of high performance, calm is not a personality trait. It is a competitive metric, and if you are not tracking your emotional leakage, you are flying blind in a storm everyone else sees coming. But the top 1% do not just minimize this tax. They have learned something far more powerful. Motion is not the enemy. Misplaced emotion is, which means the real skill is not suppression. It is assignment. Because once you stop seeing feelings as flaws, start seeing them as signals with tactical value, to unlock a layer of advantage most never access. And that is where true emotional control begins. Calm does not win negotiations. Controlled outrage does. Most people treat emotions like software bugs, something to patch, suppress, or reboot away. But the elite, they treat them like weapons, precisely selected, carefully loaded, deployed only when they serve a strategic purpose. Think of your emotional repertoire not as a liability, but as a concealed arsenal. Calm is your scope, steady, wide angle, perfect for scanning terrain. Anger is your blade, sharp, sudden, used to cut through deception or enforce boundaries. Anxiety, that is your early warning radar tuned to hidden risks others ignore. And if you are not assigning roles to your emotions, you are walking into battle unarmed. Consider this. A CEO walks into a boardroom where her CFO has just leaked internal projections to a rival. She could stay calm, smile politely, let it slide to preserve harmony, or she can let cold fury rise, just enough, so her voice drops 2 octaves, her gaze locks, and she says, "You have compromised us. Explain why I should not walk out right now and call legal." The room freezes, not from fear of yelling, but from the weight of controlled intensity. That is not losing control. That is weaponizing it. Neuroscience confirms this is not just theater. A 2021 study from Stanford's Decision Neuroscience Lab found that participants who strategically amplified anger in negotiation scenarios secured 23% better terms without damaging relationships because their counterparts perceived them as principled, not volatile. The key? The anger was chosen, not triggered. This is the silent protocol of high performers. They do not ask, "How do I feel?" They ask, "What do I need to feel right now to achieve my objective?" A special forces interrogator does not suppress frustration. She channels it to calibrated impatience to break a subject's rhythm. A trial lawyer does not avoid grief. She summons genuine sorrow during closing arguments to activate jurors' mirror neurons. A founder raising capital does not hide hunger. She lets restrained ambition leak through her voice to signal conviction. Motion, when unassigned, hijacks you. But when assigned, it becomes leverage. And here's what almost no one realizes. The most powerful emotional state is not calm. It is intentionality. Because once you stop reacting, start selecting. Stop being a passenger in your own nervous system. But selection alone is not enough. Timing is everything. And that is where the real mastery begins. Not in what you feel, but in when you let it surface. You were never meant to be motionless. You were meant to be emotionally precise. And precision, quiet, deliberate, ruthless, as how the top 1% turn inner weather into outer advantage. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a sliver of time, not seconds, not even half a second, just 400 milliseconds. That is the window, measurable, visible, on Iishi. Between a stimulus hitting your senses and your brain launching a full emotional response. In that blink, your prefrontal cortex has one chance to override the amygdala's alarm, one chance to choose instead of react. Most people never notice it. They live their entire lives downstream of that gap, yelling after the email is sent, regretting after the words leave their mouth, spiraling after the thought takes root. But the elite? They have learned to stretch that 400 milliseconds into a cathedral of control. Picture this. A hedge fund manager watches a $200 million position collapse in real time. Alarms flash. Team panics. His pulse spikes. But instead of barking orders or freezing, he does something almost imperceptible. He exhales slowly, shifts his gaze to the far wall for 1.2 seconds, and internally labels the sensation. This is urgency, not danger. In that micropause, he reclaims agency. And in that reclamation, he saves the fund. This is not discipline. It is neuroarchitecture. Research from the Max Planck Institute tracked elite decision-makers under extreme stress. What separated them was not lower emotion, teach who has longer latency. They did not feel less fear. They simply delayed their behavioral output by an average of 3,520 milliseconds, compared to high performers who cracked under pressure. That tiny extension allowed cortical override to engage. Reason to speak before reflex. You can train this, not with willpower, but with ritual. A Navy SEAL does not stay calm during ambush. He uses a tactical breath, 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, to widen the gap. A trial judge does not suppress irritation at a disrespectful attorney. She presses her thumb into her palm with somatic anger to buy milliseconds for reappraisal. Founder facing public criticism does not ignore it. He whispers a single phrase, signal, not noise, and resets his interpretation before reacting. These are not tricks, they are neural handrails, because without that gap, you are not making decisions. You are echoing biology. And here is the quiet truth. Every major regret in your life, the harsh word, the missed opportunity, the impulsive quit, did not happen because you lacked values. It happened because you did not own those 400 milliseconds. But once you do, you stop being a leaf in the storm. You become the hand that steers the rudder. This is where control stops being reactive and starts becoming architectural, because the next layer is not about managing moments. It is about designing them before they happen. You do not rise to the occasion. You fall to your programming. Under pressure, no one chooses their emotion in real time. They default to whatever pattern their nervous system has rehearsed 1,000 times before. Panic, defensiveness, people-pleasing, silence. But the elite do not leave this to chance. They write emotional scripts in advance for the moments that matter most. Think of it like a pilot's emergency checklist. When engines fail at 30 feet, you do not improvise. You follow a pre-memorized sequence. Calm is not hoped for. She's engineered. That is strategic emotional scripting, deciding before the storm exactly how you will feel, think, and respond when chaos hits. Imagine a founder walking into her Series B pitch. She knows investors will challenge her unit economics. Most founders brace for anxiety. She does something different. 2 days prior, she sits alone and writes, "For CCRCSC is unsustainable. I will not defend. I will lean in and say, you are right. That is why we rebuilt the model last quarter. Let me show you the new payback curve, and I will feel curiosity, not threat." She does not just rehearse words. She rehearses feeling. And when the moment comes, her body obeys the script. No spike, no defensiveness, just calibrated curiosity. And the term sheets signed by lunch. This is not visualization. It is neural pre-wiring. A 2020 study from MIT's Human Dynamics Lab found that executives who practiced effective scenario planning, scripting not just actions but emotional states for high-stakes interactions, showed 31% faster recovery from stress spikes and 27% higher persuasion efficacy than control groups. Their secret: they reduced cognitive load under fire by eliminating the need to decide how to feel. The decision was already made. Navy pilots do it before every mission. Diplomats do it before tense negotiations. Even Olympic shooters script their inner state between rounds. After the shot, I feel neutral, not pride, not doubt, just reset. Because emotion under pressure is not managed in the moment. It is installed beforehand. And if you have not scripted yours, your amygdala is writing the lines for you. But here is the catch. Even the perfect script fails if your identity cannot hold it. Because no amount of rehearsal works when your self-concept cracks under scrutiny. Scripts are powerful, but they are only as strong as the foundation they are built on. And that foundation is not technique. It is who you believe you are when no one is watching and everything is on the line. Your emotional control does not fail because you lack technique. It fails because your identity is fragile. You can script every response. Master the 400 millisecond gap. weaponize emotion with surgical precision. But the moment your self-worth ties to an outcome, I must win this deal. I need them to respect me. If I fail, I am exposed. Your nervous system reverts to survival mode, because under threat, the brain does not protect your strategy. It protects your sense of self. Think of identity as the operating system beneath all your emotional software. If that OS is unstable, built on approval, perfection, or external validation, no app runs reliably under pressure. But if it is anchored in something unshakable, even chaos becomes navigable. Picture two surgeons facing the same crisis, a patient coding mid-operation. Surgeon A thinks, if this patient dies, my reputation is ruined. His hands tremble. His voice tightens. He rushes. Surgeon B thinks, I am someone who responds with precision regardless of outcome. His breath steadies. His focus narrows. He leads. Same skill. Same stakes. Different identity. This is not philosophy. It is neurobiology. A landmark 2024 MFRI study from the University of Zurich tracked high performers during simulated public failure. Those whose self-concept was tied to values, I am disciplined, I am curious, showed 42% less amygdala activation. And those tied to outcomes, I must succeed, I cannot look weak. Their prefrontal cortex stayed online, not because they cared less, but because their identity was not on the line. The elite do not say, I need to stay calm. They say, I am the kind of person who chooses response over reaction. That subtle shift from performance-based identity to principle-based identity what makes emotional control automatic, not effortful. Navy SEALs are not fearless. They have internalized. I am someone who operates in uncertainty. Top negotiators are not unflappable. They live by, my worth is not decided in this room. Founders who survive brutal pivots do not cling to their original vision. They hold, I am a learner first, a builder second. When your identity is rooted in who you are, not what you achieve, you stop defending yourself. And that is when real power emerges. Because now, failure does not threaten you. It informs you. Criticism does not destabilize you. It refines you. And silence? It is not awkward. It is strategic. But even this deep, identity-level stability has a final frontier. Because once you master your inner world, you begin to shape the outer one. Control is not just about managing yourself anymore. It is about altering how others experience reality around you. And that is where true dominance becomes silent, invisible, and absolute. The most powerful people in the room do not raise their voice. They lower the temperature. When you master emotional control, not just internally, but as a field effect. Stop competing for attention. You begin to shape the psychological weather of every space you enter. This is perceptual dominance, the silent ability to alter how others experience time, risk, and authority, simply by how you hold your inner state. Imagine a boardroom. Tensions rise, voices sharpen, deadlines loom. Then one person leans back slightly, breathes with deliberate calm, and says, let us pause 4 seconds. What is the real obstacle here? No command, no volume, just stillness. And suddenly, the room slows. Shoulders drop. Thinking deepens. That is not charisma. That is neurological entrainment. Your nervous system broadcasts signals constantly. Through micro-expressions, vocal tone, posture, even pupil dilation. Most people leak anxiety, urgency, or neediness without knowing it. But those with perceptual dominance emit coherence. And the human brain is wired to synchronize with coherence. A 2023 study from Harvard's Social Neuroscience Lab placed participants in high-stress group negotiations. when just one member displayed consistent emotional regulation, steady voice, relaxed blink rate, open posture. Entire group's cortisol levels dropped by 19%, and collaborative problem-solving increased by 34%. The regulated individual did not say anything special. They simply existed differently. That is the hidden leverage. You do not have to convince people. You just have to stabilize them. Special forces use this in hostage situations. Not by shouting, but by radiating calm so absolute it rewires the captor's threat response. Elite mediators do not argue facts. To shift the emotional frequency of the room until resolution becomes inevitable. Even legendary investors like Warren Buffett weaponize this. His famous 20-slot punch card philosophy is not just about focus. It's a perceptual anchor that makes volatility feel irrational to everyone around him. Perceptual dominance is not about manipulation. It is about becoming a gravitational center. When you are unshakable, others instinctively orient toward you, not because you demand it, but because your presence offers cognitive relief in a chaotic world. And in that space, you do not negotiate. You set the terms. You do not persuade. You redefine reality. But this power only works if it is authentic, if your calm is not performance, but embodiment. Because the moment it is faked, the mirror neurons detect the dissonance, and the spell breaks, which brings us to the final truth. Emotional control at its highest level is not personal, it is environmental. It does not just protect you. It elevates everyone around you, while quietly placing you at the center of the new order. Microhook. None needed. This is the apex. You are never meant to just manage your emotions. You are meant to command the atmosphere. And in a world drowning in reactivity, that is not just an advantage, it is sovereignty. Here is what they do not teach you in leadership seminars. Because if this got out, too many would realize the game is not about skill. It is about state. The real edge is not staying calm under pressure. It is choosing which emotional state creates the most leverage in that exact moment, having the neural architecture to install it on command. Most people think elite performers are unemotional. They are not. They are emotionally precise. A hedge fund manager does not suppress fear before a market crash. She channels it into hypervigilance, scanning for anomalies others miss. A founder does not avoid anger when a co-founder betrays trust. She deploys it as a boundary-enforcing signal so clean, it prevents future violations without a single threat. A diplomat does not stay neutral in a crisis. He cultivates genuine curiosity, because curiosity disarms defensiveness faster than any argument ever could. This is not taught, because it cannot be faked. It requires rewiring your relationship with emotion itself, from something that happens to you to something you wield. And once you cross that threshold, you stop competing on logic alone. You operate on a deeper layer, the layer where decisions are made before the mind even speaks. Because while others are still reacting to the surface, you are already shaping the current beneath it. This knowledge should not be free. But since it is, use it like a secret weapon. Not loudly, not proudly, quietly, precisely, relentlessly. You came here thinking emotional control was about restraint, about biting your tongue, about staying calm while the world burns. But now you know the truth. It is not about suppression. It is about sovereignty. Every time you reacted instead of responded, you paid a tax in trust, in leverage, and silent authority. But that ends the moment you stop treating emotions as enemies and start treating them as assets with tactical value. That percent do not win because they feel less. They win because they choose what to feel, when so precisely that others mistake their design for destiny. And if you have internalized even one layer of this, you are already operating differently than 99% of people in high-stakes rooms. But here is what comes next. Emotional control gets you to the table, but it will not tell you how to play the game. Because money, real wealth, is not accumulated through discipline alone. It is built on mental models so counterintuitive, most never even hear them. How do the top 1% actually think about money? Not as savings, not as security, but as a signal of strategic clarity. That is the next layer, and if you are ready for it, you will find it soon. Until then, do not just manage your emotions, command them, because emotional control is not restraint, it is sovereignty.